ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. Now we were in the last leg of first part of second Mundak. Now there are something which we must understand with little more emphasis before we start the second part of second Mundak. And therefore, we will go into somewhat deeper way in some of the issues today. Now, if you look at the last verse of first part of the second Mundak, it says, Purus ev idam viswam. Purus ev idam viswam. That ye Purus hi pura sansar hai. And then it says, Karm tapo brahma paramratam. That कर्म और तप जो है वो इस संसार को चलाता है. Now these two things are very, very important, and we will take a little bit of time to understand them. Purus ev idam viswam. Now this is something which has come in Bhagavad Gita twice. First in the 7th chapter, verse number 7. Here Lord Krishna said, हे धनंजय, मुझसे भिन्न दूसरा कोई भी परम कारण नहीं है. ये संपूर्ण जगत सूत्र के मणियों की सदृश्य मुझ में गुथा हुआ है. It means that everything is the supreme, everything is Akshar, everything is Brahman. Everything is noted into that note. Then again in the verse number 4 of chapter 9, he says, मुझ निराकार परमात्मा में ये सब जगत जल से बर्फ की तरह से परिपूर्ण है. जैसे there is nothing else but water in ice. Similarly, there is nothing else in this world except me. और सब भूत मेरे अंतर्गत संकल्प के आधार पर स्थित हैं, परंतु मैं वास्तव में उनमें स्थित नहीं. Now, of course, that is a very different analysis, but here it basically reiterating the same thing, that there is nothing else except the supreme in this universe. In Isa Upanishad also we saw, Isa Vasyam idam sarvam jagatyam jagat, that everything which is animate or inanimate in this world, it is pervaded by the supreme. Now the question arises that when we see this world, we see mountains, we see rivers, we see valleys, we see buildings, cities, but we don't see him. We don't see the supreme anywhere. We can touch the mountains, we can touch the river waters, we can see the oceans, we can see plains, we can see thousands of species of life. And there are jaltar, thaltar, bhuchar, jalchar, thalchar, bhuchar, all kinds of species of life. But we don't see the supreme. Now Vedanta says that the reality is that everything is pervaded by him. For us, the reality is that he is nowhere and everything else is there, which we can feel, which we can see, which we can hear. So this is a contradiction which we face in our normal life. Because for us, the world, the real world is the world which we can touch, which we can see. If I can see my friends, if I can see my neighbors, if I can see my employees in the office, if I can see my colleagues elsewhere, they are the real world for me. Or the house in which I live, the car I drive, and the city I travel from one city to another, that is looking real to me. While Vedanta says that this is illusion, the reality is that it is pervaded by the Supreme. And that is why we need to go a little bit into detail of this, analysis, why it is so. And now we will understand it with some examples. I have identified a few examples which we will go one by one. The first thing is that our sense organs are not good enough to see that invisible, insensible, unintelligible source. Our sense organs cannot reach there. Even otherwise, our sense organs have their limitations. Like if we take the sense of, sight, a bird can see thousands of times more than we can. It can travel 10,000 kilometers from Siberia to Udaipur to Ghana Pakshivan Vihar and go back. We cannot do that. A bird can see a fish deep in the sea and wait and then, try to pick it up when it comes up. A dog can smell kilometers away and chase people. So even in the normal sense, our sense organs are not perfect, but they are totally incapable of understanding the things which are subtle, things which are invisible, intangible, insensible, unintelligible. So that is one reason that we cannot see the God pervading the entire universe. That is one reason. The second thing which we should understand from our own life on daily basis, that as the things become smaller and smaller, they become more and more powerful. Like, look at our body. Our body is big, gross body. We think it's very powerful, but it is not. It has fantastic systems. The blood circulates 100,000 kilometers in a day. The liver works fantastically, creating so many, chemicals, which scientists say that even a big factory in area of 5 square kilometers cannot produce. So it's a fantastic thing, but it is not. This body is not that powerful, despite all those miracles which happen in our body. This small body, this big body, is controlled by small senses. Look at people who cannot see, who cannot hear, cannot talk, cannot walk. Look at their life. They become like vegetables. So the small senses, they control this big body. When the senses become weak, then we become helpless. The body is not as powerful as we think. And then the senses are small, but they are also controlled. They are controlled by invisible mind. You will see what your mind wants to see. You will hear what your mind wants to hear. The mind must unite with the sense to make that sense organ work. Sometimes we see television for half an hour, but if our mind is loitering somewhere else, we don't know what happened on the television screen. We read a book, we flap many pages, we don't even know a single word we read because our mind was somewhere else. So the mind has to unite with your sense organs to make it work. Now, mind is very, it's practically non-visible, non-tangible. Nobody can touch it, nobody can see it, nobody can smell it. Where is mind? We don't know where it is. The scientists don't even know where the mind is. They can see the brain, but they can't see the mind. Mind pervades everything. It becomes smaller, but it has become more powerful. Without mind, your sense organs will not work. Without sense organs, your body will not work. And then even beyond mind is intellect that argues with the mind and tells this is right to do, this is not right to do, this is ethical, this is not ethical, this is legal, this is not legal. So there's a constant interaction between mind and intellect. And intellect is even, more subtle than mind. So we can see in our own body that how the subtle things are more important than the visible gross things. And the most subtle is, of course, the consciousness, which we'll talk about separately. When that leaves, everything else stops functioning. So the things become more and more powerful as they become smaller and smaller. This is also the principle behind atomic explosion. That as you break the particle smaller and smaller, and you reach a point where the energy is concentrated completely, at that point, the maximum energy can be achieved through explosion. And that is the principle of atomic explosions. So we see that smaller things are more powerful, but they are not visible, not tangible, and not sensible most of the time. So that is the second reason. Now, let's take two examples. One example is the example which we experience every day. In the night, we have dream. In the dream, we create a world. Who creates that world? You and me create that world. From our own mind, we create a whole universe. And we live in that universe. And when we wake up in the morning, that universe disappears, but our mind and our body remains without any alteration. It is not changed at all. So similarly, the Brahma creates this universe from his own body, the Brahman, and his own body remains unaltered completely. And this universe functions like in the dream world, our universe functions. So this is how this example will illustrate us that whole universe emanates from the body of the Brahman, and it functions and then dissolves back into him. Like the dream world emanates from us, we are also Brahman in that sense. We give birth to that whole universe in which we live. And then the whole world dissolves back into us and we remain unaffected. Now, there's another example. That example is also given in Vedanta very often. There is the example of a rope and a snake. A rope in the night appears like a snake. There's no snake, but it appears like a snake. And when the light comes, it actually appears exactly as it is the rope, not the snake. So that is another example which tells us that this world appears real in the darkness, but when we are enlightened, the world actually appears nothing, it appears nothing but Brahman. So these are some of the examples which we can meditate upon and think that how this whole universe is pervaded by the Supreme. Now, I will give you one more example which is absolutely practical in our own body. Now, this body runs on the basis of consciousness. If this consciousness leaves this body, my eyes will not be able to see, my nose will not be able to smell, My ears will not be able to hear. I will not be able to taste. I won't be able to walk. I won't be able to touch. I will become completely non-functional and my body will start decomposing. So we can feel the power of this consciousness which is pervading this body. Similarly, the entire universe is pervaded by the Supreme. If that Supreme withdraws from the universe is dissolved. It doesn't exist anymore. So in this way, we can understand that how this whole universe is pervaded by the Supreme. And that is why this verse, that this whole universe is nothing but the Supreme, is very, very important. And that has been emphasized in entire ancient Indian literature, whether it is Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Puran, and other Puranas. Everywhere it has been emphasized that there is nothing but the Supreme pervading this universe. So this point we have to understand properly to experience that universe, that Supreme. Because the next part of this Upanishad will be Nididhyasan, where we can meditate and we can actually experience the Supreme in our own self. And that experience will come with 4 steps rather. Sanyam, that is discipline and control over senses. Second, Shravan, that we listen to these thoughts, good thoughts, which are left behind by our ancestors. Then Manan, meditate. We meditate on them. We think about them constantly. And then we do Nididhyasan. So it is, Nididhyasan is to make them part of our lives. How we live our life, the daily life, is integrated with those principles. Then it becomes Nididhyasan. So these are 4 principles, that is Sanyam, Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasan, which can actually make us realize the Supreme. Now, if we go back to the beginning of this Upanishad, it started with the question from Saunaka Rishi, that what is that one thing which, if we know, everything else is known. So the Rishi Angira has come to that point now where he tells Rishi Saunak, hey Saunak, this universe is pervaded by the Supreme, and if you can know that Supreme, then everything else is known. So that is where this last, mantra of the first part of second Mundaka led us. Let's see it once again, just to recapture. It says, Purus ev idam viswam, karm tapo brahm paramamratam. Now there's another very important question which has been addressed in this mantra. The question is that if Paramatma is pervading this universe, if he is everywhere, why do we see all this multiplicity? Why do we see so much, so many things, different things, millions and trillions of things here? Why? The answer to this has been given in these 2 words here. Karm tapo, karm and tap. Now, how do you create multiplicity from uniformity. You create multiplicity from uniformity through karma and tap. Tap is also in a way karma. That is, you suffer and you create things. So karma is like, for example, a factory. It's a karma. Now factory is producing different varieties of tea. Now they will create thousands of varieties of tea. You look at different brands which have been created. That is out of karma. You go to a fashion designer, from the same cloth, he will create millions of different, designs. So multiplicity comes. You go to a, you know, goldsmith, he will create millions of different ornaments from the same gold. So, or you go to some artist, from the same paint and same type of canvas, he can create thousands of different paintings. So this multiplicity is arising from karma. The karma which we perform in this world, not only you and me, but all these millions and trillions of people who are living on this universe, they all perform karma. And because of that karma, different things come into being in this universe. From the same thing, different things come into being. Like from gold, millions of ornaments come. From the cloth, millions of garments come. From the color, millions of paintings come. With the milk, the sweet guy, the sweet shop, they create thousands of different sweets. So the variety comes out of singularity through karma. Once we perform karma, then all kinds of varieties are created in this universe. The aircraft came out of that karma. The roads were built, the cities were built, the multi-story buildings were built, the theaters were built, the playgrounds were built. All these were multiplicity came out of uniformity. And then there's a reference to tap. Now the first multiplicity which came out of the tap by this Brahman itself. The Brahman created the first. He did his tapa to create this, 5 great elements and different varieties of life. So this tap was the first action done by the Brahman. And then we, as representative of the Brahman, because we all represent the same consciousness of the Brahman, we do karma, and from that the multiplicity comes into being. So this singularity is converted constantly into multiplicity through these two things. So this is the reason why the world appears in so many forms and so many, different ways to different people. So these things are very important to understand, that karma and tap, they lead to multiplicity. The uniformity is there, the supreme is pervading everything, but we cannot see that supreme. Firstly, because our sense organs are not capable enough. Secondly, if we analyze our own outer systems, then we will find that as the things become smaller and smaller, suksham and suksham, they become more and more powerful. So naturally, the most subtle things must be most powerful, and the most subtle is the consciousness. Now, even if we look at another example of our own, our own creation, like a thought comes in my mind to create a factory. Now, the thought is very subtle. Nobody knows about that thought except me. And even that thought comes from somewhere which is much more subtle. The thought comes because of the consciousness. Because I have consciousness, I can think. Hmm? And you must have heard that famous, uh, quote from, what is his name? Rene Descartes. I think, therefore I am. I would like to say that I am, therefore I am thinking. I am, and therefore I think. I am means I have that consciousness, I have that awareness, and therefore I can think. So that consciousness is the foundation of the mental thought. Now, mental thought gives rise to a process through which we create multiplicity. Somebody can create garment industry, somebody can create metal industry, somebody can create film industry, somebody can create, electronics industry, aircraft industry. So the foundation of that multiplicity is the consciousness. Consciousness giving thought process to the mind, and mind then giving rise to action, and that action resulting into multiplicity. We saw that in Mundaka Upanishad also. There's a very profound verse which says that, the thought we have in mind, over time, it turns into desire. If we keep thinking about it, it becomes a desire. If we keep thinking about the desire, then it becomes a will. It becomes stronger. And when we think about the will, then it empowers you to take action. And then when you take action, it converts into a real world in which you create some multiplicity. And that becomes your life. So the life which you live starts from that thought process. And the thought process comes from Chaitanya, from consciousness. If we don't have that consciousness, there's no thought process. So if we think in this way, backward, in a logical way, we can reach a situation where we will realize that consciousness is the foundation of everything that happens in this universe. Whether it is multiplicity, whether it is the karma we do, whether whatever, dams and aircrafts and all these innovations which we see, all these innovations are also arising from the human mind, and human mind is there because of the consciousness. So the consciousness is the basis of all that which we see. So this small mantra tells us that how this universe multiplies, how the multiplicity comes into being. Before that, it has given a sequence of the origin of the universe, how the universe came into being, and in which order. This has all been explained in the previous mantras, which we examined in our earlier sessions. In the last session, this is the concluding remark by Rishi Angira. He is telling that, therefore, considering whatever we saw in the past, in those 9 mantras, in the previous 9 mantras, considering all those 9 mantras, he concludes that Purus ev idam viswam, that this whole universe is nothing but the Supreme Lord. And karm and tap, they are the region for all the multiplicity that exists. Now, next part of the same mantra. Edatyo ved nihitam guhayam, so aham vidya granthim vikarti somme. Now, here he tells that where is that supreme, where is the place where it lives? And he tells that this Supreme is residing in each one of us in Hriday Rupi Guha. Guhayam, Etat Guhayam. Hriday Rupi Guha is the place where he is residing. So this is the crux. This is the final, secret which he is revealing, that in this Hriday Rupi Guha, the Supreme is residing in each one of us. And then how we discover him, how we find him, that will be explained in the second part of second Mundak, which is very, very fascinating again. Of course, that we will see next time onwards. But in this mantra, three things become very clear: that the Supreme pervades the entire universe, which was reiterated in Isavasya Upanishad, Isavasya Midam Sarvam, Jagatyam Jagat. And then this was also said in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna said that जैसे बर्फ में जल के अलावा कुछ नहीं है, उसी तरह से इस संसार में मेरे अलावा कुछ नहीं है. There is nothing except water in ice. Similarly, there is nothing except me in this universe. And then he also said that ये संसार मेरे में इस तरह से गुथा हुआ है जैसे एक रस्सी में वो गांठें गुथी हुई होती. So everything is that rassi, that is me, and everything is completely integrated into that. So that verse, this verse, and Isavasya Upanishad, and I'm sure similar verses have come in many other places in ancient Indian writings. Even in Rig Ved, it says that ब्रह्म एक है, लेकिन और उसको जो है ज्ञानी जन डिफरेंट नामों से पुकारते हैं. They call him by different names. So exactly the same thing here, that one Supreme Lord pervades the entire universe. The multiplicity we see is because of the tap and the karma, and that Supreme Lord is living in the Hriday Rupi Guha of everybody, and then keeping us alive and directing all our actions and sense organs. Not directing, but energizing the how the sense organs work because of that energy of consciousness. All the sense organs, the pranic energy, the breathing system, how we see, how we hear, how we taste, how the food system, food gets digested and converts into different body parts. All that is happening because of that consciousness which is pervading everywhere, and in our own body it is living in the Hriday Rupi Guha. So this is the final science about the existence of this universe, which has been explained by Rishi Angira in this part, the first part of second Mundak. The whole sequence of emergence of this universe, how the universe manifested, and then how we can feel his existence everywhere. Like we feel the existence that we are, as in our own dream, we become the same Brahman, and we create a universe, and then we dissolve it in ourselves and we get up in the morning. So the same way, this is, we don't think about it, but this is absolutely amazing that we create, you create, I create, everybody else creates a universe, and then it dissolves in our own self, and then we get up in the morning. So same way, the Brahma creates this universe, which is all around us. Actually, it is nothing but the Brahma. Like on the TV screen, you see, sometimes you see cricket match, sometimes you see a film, sometimes you see a football match, sometimes you see a fight, Sometimes you see people debating and hitting each other. And sometimes you see crime on the same screen. Similarly, in the same energy of the Supreme, all this is happening. Everything else, everything which we see is happening in that same energy, with the same energy. And that energy is coming from Him and ultimately dissolves into Him when this universe comes to an end, like when our dream comes to an end, the dream world dissolves into us. So this is something which we must understand before we move to the next section of second Mundak. Because the next section is going to tell us how we can realize the Supreme in our own self. What are the methods through which that realization can happen. So that's a very practical approach which we will see, and that has been given by Rishi Angira to Saunak Muni in response to his question. So thank you very much. If you have any queries, please do let me know. We can discuss them. Thank you.